Greetings, Cleveland, and welcome to Creative Focus, the show that illuminates some of Cleveland's most talented and creative artists across the genres of film, dance, music, theater, and visual art. I'm your host, Cornell Calhoun III, and I am excited to have with me today the creator of the award-winning Story Time with Hassan, Hassan Rogers. Hassan, welcome to Creative Focus. And man, let's chop it up.
That's Les. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Anytime.
Me.
Okay, so we both grew up on the east side of Cleveland.
That's right.
East side. Mm-hmm. So when you grew up on the east side, you got a different kind of resume.
Yes, you do.
You got a different kind of resume. See, people don't know your resume. Yeah. You grew up on the east side. So one of the memories that I remember about the east side was the boarding houses, you know? They had boarding houses on Cedar and Central, big boarding houses. And I grew up during the time of the Great Migration, when black folks were coming from the South to the North seeking opportunities. And if you didn't have family, you know, you could stay in one of these boarding houses. Now, the boarding houses were run by strong, black, no-nonsense women. I remember seeing those huge pots in the kitchen on the stove because they would cook for their tenants. And during that time, I was delivering newspapers. I was a paper boy for the old Cleveland Press.
The Press, that's right.
Old Cleveland Press. And I loved the boarding houses because I could hit a boarding house and I have 15 people, 20 people. So relatively, I could have 60 customers in 3 boarding houses. It was easier for me to transport my papers, right? Mm-hmm. So they used to drop my papers off the delivery truck on 46 and Cedar. Now, I lived on 43rd and Cedar. Now, why they couldn't drop them off on 43rd, I don't know why. But they would deliver them on 46, drop them off. Now, this was a different time. You know, they dropped my papers off at 2 o'clock. I didn't get out of school until 3:30, Central Junior High School. So one particular time, they dropped my papers off in a puddle of water, right? So from 2 o'clock to 3:30, I get my papers, they completely soaked. But I still got to deliver them to my customers, right? So I'm going to the boarding house and I'm delivering these papers and they're soaked and my customers are looking at me like I'm crazy. Now I remember this line, don't shoot the messenger. So every time I would hand one of my customers that soaked a paper and they look at me like I was crazy, I say, don't shoot the paper boy. So now, tell me something that you remember about the east side, growing up on the east side, because I want to hear your resume. I want to see what's on your resume.
You know, it's funny because, you know, I spend a lot of time in the schools with Story Time with Hassan, right, all over. And when I'm in a Cleveland school, it's always interesting when I bring up where I grew up, because I grew up in Garden Valley. You know, so that's on the southeast side. You know, the lower east side of Kinsman from 66th Street up to 79th and 2 blocks south or north, either way. It's its own little world. Matter of fact, East Tech's football team used to practice in the dump. Wow. Down there in the dump. If you're familiar with Cleveland history and Elliot Ness's case, the Kingsbury torso murderer.
Right, exactly.
Well, that Kingsbury court is in Garden Valley's dump. And there was a bridge, a suspension bridge, one of the last suspension bridges in Cleveland in this area. It's still standing somewhat. It was meant to connect the white Slavic village side to the black east side of Garden Valley with foot traffic because of the steel mill jobs.
Wow.
But that never really materialized. And growing up in Garden Valley in the early and mid 70s, that part of the dump was called, you know, it had a specific racial name for it, for that side of the hill.
I got you.
You know, and we would play down there, and it literally would be trash. It was a dump. You know, I don't have to like tell the, you know, wah sob story, but we literally played in a dump. And they put pillars up to stop people from dumping there because a little boy got killed there. He suffocated. He was playing hide and seek and he hid inside of the refrigerator.
Wow.
Yep.
So now, how large was the dump?
The dump is big enough. It's called Marion Motley Field if you go to City Hall.
Okay.
It'll say Marion Motley Field. But there, at one point, there was 1, 2, 3, 4. It was 4 baseball diamonds down there at one point. There's a lagoon in the dump, more what we call a spring. Okay. It never. I don't know if it's still bubbling now, but it was and we would have Huckleberry Finn days in the dump. Now, anybody that grew up in Garden Valley, when they're watching this program, they're gonna say, "He's telling the truth. Hey, look, come here. I told y'all." Like we literally would collect tadpoles down there, and you get the pond water, and then you take them back home, and your mother said, "You're not bringing that in the house," So you watch it on the back porch until the water evaporates and they're all dead, and it smells like decomposing fish matter. But you will always look. We could catch snakes in the dump. It was literally like going on a field trip every day. Every day. Now, that part of growing up, we knew that we were economically challenged. We knew what it was. We knew you were going to get things like, well, baby, we're not going to do it this paycheck, but the next paycheck. You've heard that. So we knew what the situation was, but no one was woe is me and was pitiful. I mean, we lived amazing lives down there, man. Amazing lives. From having adventures at the Wise Potato Chip Factory, having great adventures there, to simple adventures like saying, okay, look, let's go walk and see how far we can walk. Imagine that. Imagine 2 9-year-old children today saying, hey, Mom, we're going to go take a walk. Oh, you can't do it today. Right. But at that time, I remember a buddy of mine, his name is Grant Cox. We would walk from our house on 73rd Street to his aunt's house on 76th and Cedar. And then we said, well, you know what? Let's see if we can walk to the Natural History Museum and the Health Museum. Now I'm dating myself, but there used to be
Somebody know how old you are anyway.
This is real great. Look, this ain't dyed platinum.
There's viewers out there who say, I went to school with him.
That's right. This is a real receding hairline.
I don't care how good he looked.
Look, ain't no, you know how they got the pigment, ain't none of that. Right. This is real. My bald spot is real. My receding hairline is real. All of it is real. So I remember we'd be on these journeys, man, and we would play under the Kinsman Bridge. There were pheasants. That's the first time I saw a pheasant. It wasn't at the zoo. It was in Garden Valley under the Kinsman Bridge. Wow. They would call them grouse. So this was a grouse pheasant, and they would nest there because there was very few foot traffic. We would the Wild Wild West, that television show where they jump on the trains and then they jump off the train and they hit and roll. This is dangerous, but we did it. We would jump those trains just to see if we could jump off and roll, tuck and roll.
But I think during that time, and maybe now, kids are just adventurous. I remember we had a game where there was a garage, and this garage had to be, I'm gonna say, maybe 9 feet. And what we would do is we would stack tires up on the ground, and then we would go up the steps, get on the garage, and we would jump off. I mean, I'm like 7, 8 years old doing what the older guys are doing. I remember one time my mother looked out the window and saw me jumping off that garage, and I ain't gonna tell you what she said, but I mean, so we were adventurous, and so tell me how you transpose into the artistic Hassan Rogers. What was that artistic urge that took over?
In Garden Valley, I have to commend all the families there. They were very supportive. So any interest you had, it was either someone in your house or someone who knew you had an interest, and they would take you under their wing. My brother, Donnie Rogers, was at Caramel. He went to Caramel. He was 14. He had just had a rough school year as an 8th grader.
Didn't we all?
Yeah, he had a rough. I'll tell you about my roughest year. We will get to that, but he had a rough year, so he was looking for some ways to not be in trouble. And he, on one of his walking journeys, he had came across Caramel. He was there with young Margaret Ford Taylor. Wow. He was there with a young Kevin Willingham.
You talking about the legends.
He was there with Mike Malone days. He was there like when people who you and I love were there, and he was a young man, and he was in a folktale, and it was why the snake has no arms and legs. Okay, he was in that folk, and I helped run his lines with him. Oh, I thought this was the most amazing thing in the world that he was in a play. It was a play, and seeing him perform, whatever he did, I thought was cool. He was the artistic brother. The oldest was the athlete and the stern, no jokey. He only plays with you when he wants to belittle you. That older brother,
Right.
Right. But he was my athletic idol. So I had William Munn that I wanted to emulate athletically, and then Donnie Rogers, who was the intellectual. He introduced me to Nietzsche. He introduced me to Voltaire. He introduced me to Freud as a little guy, because these were things that interested him. You can attest to this. There was a time when people would actually go down to the main library branch and just read, because they had leather chairs and marble, and men would be smoking cigarettes and reading, and it was almost like a country club. It was a poor man's country club. So the library and reading became, my mother is an avid reader, my father was an avid reader. My mother, to this day, she's in her 80s, and she still reads concurrently 2 novels. One may be nonfiction, or a nonfiction work, and then she reads her fiction. Wow. To this day, she introduced me to reading. It was a way that I could compete with my older brothers.
Gotcha.
So my artistic endeavors and my love of politics, of history, and things like that, which became a part of my storytelling aspect, that all started in my house with Jesse Rogers, John Rogers, William Munn, Donnie Rogers. So that's where it started.
And how did you wind up at Caremore? How did you wind up performing? Prior that was prior to.
Yeah, that was prior to. I was a young man. So when my brother was 14, I was 10. I was still getting in a lot of trouble. I tell you, we're going to get to the
dump.
Down in the dump in the valley, yes. But after high school, I wanted to be in broadcasting. I was fascinated with broadcasting. When I went to the Cleveland School of Science, I learned how to write. Miss Anna Justo, she's a graduate. She goes back to when Cleveland State was Finn College. Right. Okay, so she was the first graduate in that transition from Finn to Cleveland State. She was our English teacher, short little Italian lady, the Cleveland School of Science, who was she had the swagger of like who's Danny DeVito's ex-wife? You remember, short? She had the hair, and she was a tough little. She was little, but she was tough, sort of like our mothers. She was a lot like our mother. She could relate to younger people, but she didn't play at all. Right. So when you came in and you do stuff like, "Hey, Miss Justo, if I was a little older," she's like, "Yeah, if you were a little older, you still would be uninteresting." She's actually talk about curving you. Right. She was able to not emasculate you, but to keep you in your place. And so at the School of Science, I found that I was able to compete with other people who were academically superior to me in other areas. Like I flunked out of algebra trig. I was on academic probation a lot of my time at the School of Science. I remember them asking me, "Are you sure you still want to be here?" And I said yes, because I was proving something to myself. I ended up graduating senior class president. So I proved something to my peers as well. But in high school, I wanted to be in broadcasting. So after high school, believe it or not, since you want to be in broadcasting, you would think you go to college. Well, because my academic career was up and down, let's say that it was up and down, my mother was not that keen on investing in my collegiate future. So college wasn't in my immediate future. And I did well in the ASVAB test, so much so that the military came knocking. And at 19, I was looking forward to going into the Marines. I enlisted in 1984 as an 18-year-old in October. Ended up going to Paris Island. Very few people know this. I recruited my older brother, William Munn. I end up seeing him on Paris Island later on in his training. I was at the beginning phases of my training. He was getting ready to graduate. I saw him. He was the flag bearer. He was, the platoon leader. I saw him. I looked over, and when you go to Paris Island, you may start off, my complexion, your complexion. You're gonna end up the color of the trim on because the sun is real on Paris Island. But your brother. When you see your brother, I saw him, and I felt so proud, right? And at that same moment, what was concurrently happening in my head was, yeah, this ain't for me though. So after the Marine Corps, I went into broadcasting. I went to the broadcasting school and got a job in radio and was pursuing my dream in broadcasting, and came back to Cleveland, was up for a gig and didn't get the gig. Heartbroken. It was kind of like one of my first defeats. I didn't get the gig. So I started working at the East Cleveland school system.
And that spurred the desire to work with kids?
That was my desire to work with kids. Prester Pickett and I were on the citywide student council program. He got in touch with a mutual friend because he was working on his master's degree at Case. He said, I need some help with a production. Haas, can you come help me? I thought he needed me to, be some muscle, come lift some steam. I wasn't interested in theater or acting at all. But he said, no, I want you to perform. He gave me the monologue, and I had no idea what I was getting, no idea. He gave me the monologue from Merchant of Venice by Shylock. He gave me a piece from James Weldon Johnson, and I preached the sermon at the funeral, the eulogy, and from, I want to say Imitation of Life, something of that. But he had these, and I was in the Soldier's Play. I played CJ. In that.
I auditioned for that play and didn't get cast.
They made a mistake. They should have cast you.
Yeah, they should have.
Because he put together a nice crew for his version of it, because he just did snippets of it, right? He had Neil Hodges playing the father. No, playing, not the father, but Adolph Caesar, who played the father in Color Purple. And he played the drill instructor in Soldier's Play. In the film with Denzel.
Right, yeah.
So Neil Hodges played that character of the sergeant.
Now this was at Cleveland State?
This was at Case.
Oh, at Case. No, I auditioned for the one at Caramel.
Yeah,
okay.
And this was at Case. And this was his master's program, right? So I was in this performing arts festival. When I hit the stage, Cal, during that Merchant of Venice speech, Shylock's monologue, he wants his pound of flesh. It's the famous line, when you cut me, do we not bleed? Don't disrespect me. Like, I was being introduced to Shakespeare in a way that was different. And I grabbed hold of this language, and I had the meter. I was handling that ambionic pentameter. I was killing that joint. I felt like I was always supposed to be on stage. I can't even tell you how long it lasted. I can't tell you how it looked. That's how transcendent the moment was for me. Wow. I was floating. Then there was this raucous applause. And I was like, I'm like, wow, okay, that's directly correlated to my work. And it was an immediate gratification that I can't even to this day, after years in the theater, it's still an indescribable joy when your work hits the stage and the audience and actor and director and all that stuff is working together. It's an indescribable feeling of reward, accomplishment, fulfillment. And from that day on, from that time on, so it was 1991. And then Prester called Sarah May and said, I got a guy that you should look at. This is when Caramel had their Drama Theater for Youth program, and they would audition. They would go all over the region and look for artists. They only had one Cleveland actor. They would only have one Cleveland actor. And it's 4 people in this troupe. Well, David Hansen was the director at that time, the artistic director of that troupe, while Sarah was the artistic director, to Margaret Ford Taylor being the executive director, is during that time. And I met David Hansen there, and we were working in this group, and I fell in love with it, Cal. I fell in love with performing and then going into the classroom, because the work I did at Roselle with special needs and special ed children, physically challenged children, that background was vital in working with all populations with the arts. So many schools like to come and perform, many organizations come and perform, and then they leave. But very few people visit that guy who is in the planning center. Very few people visit the guy who is in the special needs room. Well, that's where I found my niche. I loved the workshops after the performance. The other actors would be in the van like this, waiting on me. When I would come out, I was always late. Well, one day, Cal, I saw the evaluations on Sarah's desk. And I saw my evaluations from the teachers that attended the performances and the workshops and the students. And so, and I don't have a problem sharing this, on our break, because we had a 2-week break for Easter, on my break, I put story time with Hassan together. Now, of course, I was under contract, and that was an issue, so I couldn't pursue it wholeheartedly, but my first story time with Hassan performances actually came while under contract with Calhoun.
I had heard so much about story time with Hassan, but I had never witnessed it until I brought you to City Hall to perform. And we have a clip that
No,
I'd
you
like
don't.
To, yeah,
You have a clip.
We have a clip.
Wait, I know that clip. I want to show people, look, I've lost weight since then. Holla at your boy, all right? But don't.
We have a clip of story time with Hassan. Hassan visited City Hall, Charles Mooney Middle School students. And then we're going to take a look at the clip.
Zebra, come closer, a little closer, a little closer. Snap, zebra. He said, hey man, you just don't like that the water likes me. I'm going over there to the water because the water keeps calling me. You heard the water calling me. Tell him don't do it. Oh, stop hating, Tay. You just don't like it because the water not calling you. The water was calling me. Tell him, say, don't do it. Girl, I'm not listening to you. You're not my mama. Tell him, say, don't do it. Oh man, forget y'all. Y'all just hate me, boy. Zebra. Hey, where you at? Where you? Zebra. Zebra. Here I am. Sing it, man. Zebra. Sing it. Sing. Come on, water. Zebra. Sing it, man. Now, the zebra kept looking for the water to sing, and he wasn't paying attention. Before he knew it, the crocodile leapt out of the water, jaws wide open. Boom! Got him. And he was ready to flip the whole zebra right in his mouth and just swallow him. And as he said, wait, man. You promised if I help you catch it, we would share it. Crocodile said, all right, well, here, you can have your half. He said, no. I don't eat the fur. Crocodile said, I do. Anansi said, I don't eat the fur, and I take all that off, and I take his guts out before I eat him. Crocodile said, I eat the guts, the hooves, the fur, the head, I just eat all of it. He said, no, man, let's take it back to my house. I'll cook it, we'll eat it, all right?
Wow, so that was Hassan's performance at Cleveland City Hall in the Rotunda.
I love that day.
Incredible. And I have a photo. I want you to take a look at this photo of how these kids are mesmerized. Can I get that photo up for the audience? Look at that. Wow. I
had a great time with them, man.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you coming out there.
You know, that was a big deal. Being in City Hall and performing for a Clevelander, that's a real big deal, especially for me because the only time I was ever at City Hall was to get a copy of my birth certificate to play sports. You know, you got to get that card. Right. And I was fascinated by the history of the city of Cleveland. And I would go down and read all the little things and look at all the statues and wait to see the mayor. At that time, it was Dennis Kucinich. Okay. And I was fascinated that everyone called him the Boy Wonder. And I wanted to see him.
Well, you holding that that drum. Why don't you just play something quick for me? Yeah, I want to see what you got. I want to see what else is on your resume.
So look, so this little doumbek or baby djembe, I've been playing the djembe for a while. I studied with a guy named Paul Asagai, and that was during Africa Dance Days in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And they were in a joint production at Caramoo during The Tempest. Willie Boyd was Prospero in that. Okay. Yeah, and Justin Dennis directed that. Okay. I played Caliban in that. And but I had this little drum, going back to this story with East Cleveland, the kindergarten teacher that I worked with, she gave me a Maasai drum. It had a goat's eye in it, right? It was very little. I'm talking about like the size of maybe a bag of flour. So all the guys that were real Jones, they were like, they would tease me. But that's when I began to play, right? So. And so in story time, we'll use this drum. We have this, we use large motor movement. As artists, we have to warm up, right? So we have a thing where we want them to put your hands up, let me see you reach. Put your hands up, let me see you reach, get it. Put your hands up, let me see you stretch, get it. Put your hands up, hold it. Let the beat chop. Put your hands up, let me see you reach, get it. Put your hands up, let me see you work, get it. Work to the left, lean to the left. Work to the right, lean to the right. Now, wiggle in the middle like a wet spaghetti noodle. Wiggle in the middle like a wet spaghetti noodle. Take it down and up and stop. So story time incorporates the drum. And I like to sing, but I'm not a singer. I like to sing. I stay away from singing or anything like that, but I do like to sing. That happened as a young guy growing up in this church called Tree of Life. And I remember being in the choir, and I remember one of our goals. Now, this is for church folk. One of our goals as the junior choir was to always out-sing the adults. That was one of the goals. And you judge out-singing in church form. How do I put this? In church form, choirs judge who can out-sing by if you can make people catch the Holy Ghost. So our goal as a choir was to make the grown-ups catch the Holy Ghost. That was our goal. Now, you got to work to make a grown-up catch the Holy Ghost because you got to make them start thinking about their bills and, all the things that this song makes. So as a young man, I began to appreciate the power of performance, especially if you were committed to the performance. So being in the choir there, eventually we had our own little quartet that traveled to other churches and sang. And my writing, I began to write. I wrote poetry then. I wrote some narratives. I even wrote a song. I wrote a song that we sang that blew my mind.
So if, say, an individual or a school wanted to reach you with the possibility of having a story time with Hassan come to their organization, how would they reach you?
I'm super old-fashioned in this regard. I don't even have a website. For Storytime with Hassan. But what happens is I am a part of social media. Okay. I'm a part of social media. You see me on social media, but it's a simple phone call. I'm just a phone call away.
And what is that?
And that's 216-323-9548.
Give it to us again.
216-323-9548. And that's Monday through Friday.
And that's the number you can use if you're interested in having Hassan Rogers come with the innovative and award-winning story time with Hassan. Yeah. Hassan, name some mentors, people that you looked up to coming up on that east side of Cleveland.
Definitely will. Got to give a shout out to my man Chris Scott.
Chris Scott.
For people who played sports in the city of Cleveland, Chris Scott. Chris Scott worked for an organization called Eagles Nest before he was with the city. And Eagles Nest was this rec center. It was more than a rec center. It was almost like, and Cal can speak to this, wouldn't you say Eagles Nest was almost like the athletic version of Karamu?
I remember being
playing where there were overnight, you could spend the night at Eagles Nest. There were field trips. You would be introduced to crafts there. You would meet other athletes from the area. And Chris Scott, what he did was he was in his van. He would drive to Garden Valley, and he would ask, "Hey, any of you guys want to learn how to play baseball?" Now, when we moved to Garden Valley. I wasn't born there. I moved there when I was 8. But we came from Collinwood. My older brother loved baseball. Therefore, I loved baseball. So he was a good athlete already when we moved to Garden Valley. Now, I found out, like you old heads, you and him, y'all tell some good stories. Later on, I found out that he wasn't always a good athlete. That what I was seeing was the result of many hours and tears and frustration of it not working out. But that by the time he came outside, he had his mechanics together. You know what I mean? So I really began to see to see sports as a way to like really equalize the playing field. And Chris Scott, what he did was he would come around and he didn't care where you were. Everybody was going to get the same fundamental training. So like even now, bam, I still got the buns down, ready to feel, man. I'm ready. Even now in my advanced age, 50, I'm ready to play baseball and football. Chris Scott was easygoing, but he didn't play. He had a great sense of humor because, you know, in the black neighborhood, we crack jokes, and he has a nickname that he does not like. So if you see Chris Scott, call him Buddy Waldo because that's his. We said he had a walnut head, and he kind of looked like a walnut, you know. Yeah, and then he had his bow legs, little to it, so he kind of reminded of us.
See, I played Little League baseball in the same league with Chris Scott, and then Chris Scott was at East Tech when I attended East Tech, and he played on the basketball team, such as same as I did. You know?
And those are his basketball, baseball, and football.
He was an incredible athlete and an incredible human being.
Great guy. And who know now? Fact about Chris Scott, he can sing. Chris Scott can sing.
See, I never knew that.
Never knew that. He can sing, you know, like sing. He can really sing. Now, I never knew that. My little brother found out because my little brother's a barber and he cuts Chris's hair, or, you know, he did.
So what's the future for Hassan Rogers?
What
can we expect?
I'm proud to say that Storytime with Hassan is one of a few academic vendors for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. We provide curriculum supplements with them. We're going to partner with them in their summer enrichment program again this year. They asked us back. You can expect more involvement with children who are often not serviced. I spend a lot of time in early childhood because the arts oftentimes doesn't make it down to that level. So if we can build an appreciation for the arts as a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, then they won't be so overwhelmed when they meet it again later on in life. And they'll be well-rounded. So Storytime with Hassan is on that mission to continue to make the arts accessible to all children of all ages and all intelligences. That's a lifetime mission. I tease my fiance. Oh, I'm getting married. I'm getting married this summer.
Oh, congratulations!
I'm getting married this summer. She's
I
gonna say,
met your fiance.
yeah, you've met Sonya. Yes. So I'm getting married. I tell her it's story time for life. So I never plan on not doing story time. The play I wrote about growing up in Garden Valley, Mrs. Rogers' Back Porch, I would love to see that as a film. I happen to know an amazing filmmaker who I sit across from. Let me talk about you. You talked about me for a minute. No, give me five on this one. When I met Cal, I already knew his name, but I knew you as a ball player and a coach. I knew who you were because I like sports. I'm one of the few guys that actually read the sports page, you know. Right. So I mean, like I read it, you know. So Cal is a playwright, filmmaker, writer, director, actor. I got a chance to meet Cal, the writer, and as a director, when you meet a work, for me, I always look at the honesty in the work. I always look at the honesty. I'm not that guy that's so big on Shakespeare. I'm more August Wilson. I'm not so big on musicals. I'm more gritty drama Cal. I want to feel like I'm in this situation. Your writing as a director, being able to touch it, it's very accessible. It's like whether you want cornbread or not, when it's baking in the oven, it always smells good. You know, so your writing is very familiar. It's very easygoing, yet it's not afraid to talk honesty. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love what you've done for the craft of theater here in Cleveland, and you've helped to keep reminding black people that theater is not about a dude with muscles on and a tank top shirt and singing a musical, and every black man's the drug dealer and he beats the wife and then at the end they find God. No, that's not theater. That's a form of something you've seen and you dressed up to go see. What you've done is the same thing Lorraine Hansberry did, the same thing Amiri Baraka did, the same thing Wilson has done, the same thing I attempt to do, the same thing Oatman does, the same thing that Clegg does, is I'm going to take you into the life of people that you don't acknowledge exist. So you've given voice to those who don't have voices. So I applaud you for that, and I applaud you for a platform for my voice.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
No, anytime. So, that's it, Cleveland. I want to thank my special guest, Hassan Rogers, creator of Storytime with Hassan, for hanging out.
Oh, look,
with
when
us.
we say goodbye, wait, hold on. I know you got to say your goodbye, but look, I'm sorry. I got to interrupt you. I got it. I know, don't get me. Coach going to make me run laps after this. That's all right. Look, this is something you got to let me bless you with, okay? You got to let me bless you with this. So look, so when we say, well, you're going to say goodbye after this, but you got to let me bless you, okay? Are you great? Let me see you stick your thumb in the middle. Let me see you put your other thumb in. Raise your index pointing to the ceiling. Let your pinky follow suit. Guess what? I love you. That's how we say goodbye.
I'll take that anytime. So that's it, Cleveland. We're out. Again, I want to thank my special guest, Hassan Rogers, creator of the Storytime with Hassan, for hanging out with us today on Creative Focus. So remember, a true artist is not only inspired, but inspires others. I'm Cornell Hubert Calhoun III for TV20 and Creative Focus. Until the next time becomes our time, be well, be safe, Cleveland.